community for 40 years. So you build a network within your own community. As far as running, the first time is difficult if you're running as a municipal or regional councillor because the rules have changed, first of all, for obtaining money, but you have to go out and collect money at $750 maximum donation for each person, and it has to be personal donations. It takes a lot of those to get, $40,000 or $50,000 to run a campaign. As you mature more into the field of politics, you build up a base there for donations from corporations or developers or whoever you've been doing business with. But those rules have changed too. Like I said, now you can't get that type of donation. It all has to be personal donations. So it's going to be a tough one for us this time. As far as, what was the other part of that question? I apologize.
How do you build a votership base, and also how do you allocate resources? How do you get money for
the resources? Is begging. Begging, holding a lot of fundraisers. But I think that any person that's in politics that is doing the job correctly campaigns every single day. You don't wait until 6 weeks before an election or 6 months before an election. You're based on what you're doing today. So how you help a person today or yesterday, that is what is going to gain you your voter base.
My network actually was my dad and my brothers I'm the only sister for 3 brothers in my family, and it's surprising that I was the one that went into politics. They are my rock and have been. Because municipal, you kind of run on your own. At the party level, you have to first win a nomination, which is a contest within the party family. I won't mention which party I'm from, but you can judge by the color of that nomination piece of it was probably the toughest part, because that's when you prove or try to prove why is it that you are the person that the party should pick to represent this riding. Are you a winnable candidate? And as a woman, as a young brown woman, as a young brown immigrant woman, it's I was told that these are all of the reasons why you should not run. But I counted on my support, which was my family, my friends, my brother's friends, and then a whole bunch of people who I just met along the way that came together. And I like to think that it wasn't me that people came out to ultimately support in my nomination and in the actual election. It was the idea of what effective representation should look like in a riding like Mississauga-Erin-Mills, which is basically every one of those things that I am: young, brown, woman, immigrant, lawyer by profession. But don't hold that against me, please.
So I could actually speak on this topic for days because this is something that I personally find very interesting. I won't, I promise, but it's something that I find very interesting. And I think to Sue's earlier point, the best place to start is your own personal network. I think so many of us, and I think in Canada we're blessed in that there's a lot of information about how to get involved, about how to participate, but we also see a lot of influence from the United States when it comes to understanding what politics and what campaigns look like. And I will say that it is much easier in Canada and also much harder. You really don't have the corporate donations, as Sue mentioned. The donation limits are very small, so it's all about personal relationships. It's going out there, it's meeting people one-on-one, it's sitting down with them, understanding what their concerns are, understanding where they stand. And I think that it has developed quite a bit in the last few years. I think that there's a lot more tools out there too. And I will say that a crucial part of it is being organized. I think one database that you put all these contacts in, and friends and family, and not being afraid of reaching out into your networks. One of the points that I always hear is that women are a lot more uncomfortable reaching out into their own networks and asking people for favors, asking people to give them money, asking people to come out to events. So I think it takes a personal level of getting to that comfort space where you feel like yes, I'm passionate about this. Yes, I'm willing to do this. And yes, I'm willing to do this because I want to represent a particular voice, or I want to make sure that a particular voice is heard. And then from there, it tends to grow. So it does make a huge difference, especially in a nomination process. It's a tough battle. But I think that it's something that everyone can find that once they tap into their networks, that has a lot of support. I'll say at Equal Voice, one of the things that we aim to do is to create some of those skills and to identify some of the people that have the skills and are able to come help out. So that if you are running, for example, as a first-time candidate, whether municipally, provincially, federally, that you have one or two people who have run campaigns before, who have done this before, who can sit down and say, okay, here's what the bare bones of a plan looks like. Here's where you start, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you have some of that shared knowledge.
I'd just like to emphasize one thing, and that is, it doesn't matter how much money you collect. If they don't come out to vote, you have nothing.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is the most important thing, is getting the vote out. Because you could have $1 million that you're spending, but if your people aren't coming out to vote, it doesn't matter.
On that note, what are some of the barriers that you may face in the political system, whether it's in general or specifically for women, and how do you maneuver around them? I'll take that.
Yeah, you take that. And Sue touched on this earlier. One of the hardest things that I face as a candidate, as even now as an elected official, is asking people for money. It is so difficult for me. It is not difficult for my male colleagues. They have such an easy time just, calling up somebody. It's like, hey, you got a check ready for me or what? And me, I have to think a million times. And it's, you think, well, what if the person says no? Or, okay, and it's something that I'm now trying to really overcome as a barrier. And I keep going back to something that one of my law professors said. Asked him for the book award, he would have given it to me because nobody had asked. And it was something that he said, Iqra, if you don't ask for it, the answer is always going to be no. So when you don't ask somebody, then you're already at that no level. And that, I think, is applied to everything, asking for votes, asking for endorsements, and actually, putting the ball in somebody else's court. And we as women have a hard time doing that. Secondly, I think that we as female politicians, and I speak for myself because I know Sue's a very confident woman, but I tend to second guess myself a lot. You wonder if a decision that you're making is the right decision. You wonder whether you'll have the support for something that you want to do on a policy basis. You wonder always if you're better or at the same level as your self-doubts or something that do stand in our own way. And so ultimately, based on those two examples, and I think that is something that we've been systemically kind of led into, where we are not empowered to believe in ourselves. And once we gain that confidence, when we start believing in our own abilities, whether they're the same or different from our male counterparts, I think that is when we become successful politicians, in my case.
Well, it took me 18 years to be confident, and it did. I mean, there was many times I cried myself to sleep from making bad decisions or